For all your email management needs, look no further than Aweber, the preferred choice for geekoutdoors.com. Sign up today and you could get a 30-day free trial by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below.
Hey, welcome to another episode of geekoutdoors.com. On my continuing series on making the move from Windows or Mac over to Linux, today I'm going to be talking about stability, random issues, and BSOD, or Microsoft's blue screen of death. Now, if you have not seen my original video where I show you how to install VirtualBox and then install Linux Mint within VirtualBox, be sure to check that out in the description area below. Now, one thing that Linux users often make fun of Windows users is how unstable Windows is. The fact that they often have stability issues as well, and also the whole blue screen of death, or BSOD. Okay, so that's one thing that I think people who've used Linux a long time, who were also Windows users before, they understood the many headaches that came about whenever you use Windows. Okay, and then when they moved over to Linux, it was a whole different world, and I would attest to it that that's one of the main reasons why I really enjoy Linux, because I didn't have to worry about it crashing regularly. I didn't have to worry about a lot of random issues, and also the blue screen of death, which I hated as well. Now, I will say that over the years, Windows has gotten much better in those departments, okay? But they are still there. Now, I do want to put out a caveat here. I do have Windows 10 within a virtual machine, okay, but I also have Linux Mint within a virtual machine as well. And so this might not be exactly what you would get in your versions on full versions on desktop for either Windows 10 or Linux Mint. However, it shows me enough to kind of give you an idea of my own experience. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen. So let's go ahead and start with the first thing, which is stability. Okay, so for all the people who've never used Linux before and have only used Windows or only used Macs, a lot of people would agree that in terms of stability, meaning not having things that would cause your system to crash or restart, or maybe it would, like, have errors whenever it put new updates and then it would try to restart, things like that. Basically having your computer up and running. Normally it goes like this. Microsoft is usually at the bottom, okay, and this is for stability, and then above that is Apple's Mac OS, and then finally I would say Linux. That is my personal opinion, because I have used all three operating systems. And for all the people who use Apple Mac OS and have never used anything else, there is something that has greater stability than Apple Mac OS. In my opinion, that is Linux. Okay. And also, I do also want to say that in terms of Linux, there are so many different versions or distros of Linux. So a lot of this depends on the versions of Linux that you're using and what you're actually doing with it. So if you're using a version of Linux that is very, I would say, cutting edge, then you're probably going to have more issues, okay? But for something that's more mature, like Linux Mint or Ubuntu or the many other popular flavors, this is something that is normal. So for Linux, in terms of it being stable, it's like pretty much your system can run without restarting, unless there was a Linux kernel update. For me, if I have a problem like with having the operating system up, say it crashes or freeze or something, that probably only happens like once a month, sometimes twice, but that is really rare, for when you compare that to Windows, where that's more common. Now, I will say that with Windows 10, I've had less issues with stability, okay? But I still have had crashes, I still have had where Microsoft would push out an update, and then when it is updating it, there is errors, okay, and that it would have to restart again, okay? And so I have still had that, but much less in Windows 10, okay? But obviously not at the level of a Linux machine, okay? And then similar to the whole stability issues is random issues, okay? This is kind of hard to explain if you are not a Linux user, but in Linux, usually when you have a problem, okay, it is usually consistent, okay? Whereas in Microsoft Windows, when you have problems, more times than not, it's not always consistent. Okay, like for example, in my VirtualBox, whenever I'm using Windows 10, every now and then my internet would not work. Okay, and I would have to restart it. Or if I try to, restart, I'll actually start up the Windows 10 within VirtualBox, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't start at all. It would crash. And I've had a previous video where I show that. And whereas, in Linux, just remember, that's why I mentioned I do have Linux in a virtual machine right here. I do not have those issues. Okay, and like I said, that is in a virtual machine, but that kind of tells you something right there as well. Okay, and then also let's go ahead and look at some other things. And this is in a virtual machine. I just definitely want to make that point. And then if you go to settings right here, and then let me see, there was also a display issue that I had in personalization. You see here, it's just these graphical errors. Okay, and then if I go back, and then let me go ahead and go there again, let me click on something else. Okay, see, now it's fixed. Okay, now I don't know if this only occurs in a VirtualBox. Okay, I think it only occurs in a VirtualBox, but that's kind of things like that. Okay, where it would just be random. Okay, and sometimes that one was actually consistent. Okay, so there is still random stability issues, things like that I was used to in Windows, and it's still here. Okay, I can't show you all the things that occurs because that's why it's random. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, and that's a big thing for me, is to have stability, and also if there are problems that occur, that I actually have it be consistent. Okay, at least with Linux, if there's a problem, most of the time the same problem occurs again and again, so that it's easier for me to actually troubleshoot it. Okay, whereas in Microsoft Windows, sometimes it is something that happens normally, like that graphical error, but sometimes it's just stuff like the networking issue or it crashing whenever it starts. Those are things that are random. Okay, and in terms of like day-to-day use on this, for Windows 10, I don't use this day-to-day. Okay, so I might use it like an hour or two a week just to kind of like get used to using it. But the fact that there are still those issues, and then I compare it to Linux, Linux is still more stable and has less random issues. However, as I stated earlier, the Windows 10 version is a lot more stable and less random issues that I had in the past. Okay, and then that leads me to the final thing, which is BSOD, which is the dreaded Microsoft blue screen of death. And I have gotten that a few times since I've had this, but much less. Okay, much less than I used to have it. Okay, so the times that I have had the BSOD is usually with an update. Okay, and one time I had it whenever I was installing some software, and it just crashed. Okay, it was basically some additional plugins for this actual VirtualBox machine. Okay, the VirtualBox editions. Okay, but other than that, I have not had the BSOD error as much as I did before. And whenever you do get the BSOD errors in the modern age, you actually have better description of the error at the bottom. It actually give you the error name, and then you could actually go online to look that up. Whereas before it would give you like a memory reference error, or just like cryptic. And if I compare that to Linux, once again, having like system crashes, complete system crashes, things of that nature in Linux, it doesn't happen very often. Okay, like I said, for me, maybe once or twice a month. Okay, and if you're the type of person who likes to experiment with Linux a lot, then you might see more of that. But overall, for the majority of users, Linux is still going to be more stable, more reliable. You're going to have less random issues, and also less critical errors. And so those are all kind of the same, but that's one of the main benefits that you would get whenever you are moving over to Linux, among many other things. Okay, so if you had any thoughts on Linux stability, reliability, the BSODs, critical errors, whatever the case might be, or maybe some of your own thoughts on your own use on Linux. You know, how reliable has it been for you? How stable has it been? When was the last time you had to restart your machine? Okay, leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, leave a like and subscribe. And if you wanted to support my channel further, you could do that at patreon.com/geekoutdoors. Thanks for checking out this episode.
And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.